Hey there, and welcome into another episode of A Forever, coming to you with another quality movie review. I am your host, Matt, and as always, our unofficial official sponsor of the podcast is MoviePass. $9.95 a month gets you one movie a day at theaters in your area. Check MoviePass.com for theater listings. But today, you do not need a MoviePass to check out our next review, and that is the Netflix original movie, The Cloverfield Paradox. All you need is your Netflix subscription, and you can check this one out. I was really caught by surprise by this one because we knew a third Cloverfield movie was coming. After the success of 10 Cloverfield Lane and the subtlety of it being like as they called it, a sister sequel to the original Cloverfield from 2008, this movie wasn't intended, just like 10 Cloverfield Lane, it wasn't intended to be a Cloverfield sequel, but they tied it in very subtly, and this movie is set before the events of the original Cloverfield. And it was originally intended to be called God Particle, which I can understand. The concept of it is a great science or space horror movie, but it was very interesting to see how they tied it into Cloverfield very subtly, and also set up sequels in the future for that. So, like I said, it's a prequel to the original Cloverfield movie, and the movie opens up with our main character of Hamilton, played by Gugu Mbatha-Rau. She's from Beauty and the Beast and Black Mirror, which I'm obsessed with. She is a communications officer for the British Space Agency, and they are about to set off onto a mission to try to bring the Earth clean energy, because right now the Earth is struggling to maintain a power source. And so her and a bunch of astronauts from around the world are going to come together to try to turn on this device, the particle accelerator, in space, in hopes to have clean energy for the entire world. So the movie picks up right there where she's having this discussion with her husband whether or not she's going to go, and it could take a week, it could take 6 months, it could take years. And then we get, during the opening credits of the film, we break into how long they've actually been out there. And so you watch attempt after attempt after attempt after attempt, and it ends up being 690 days, over 40 attempts to try to successfully turn on this particle accelerator. And this is when you also meet the crew on board. David Oyelowo plays the American astronaut Keel. David Bruhl plays the German astronaut Schmidt. John Ortiz plays the Brazilian astronaut Monk. Chris O'Dowd plays the Irish astronaut Mundy. Xing Zhao plays the Chinese astronaut named Tan. And our last but not least, our Russian astronaut Askil Henny plays Volkov. And so you have this crew, and you're seeing them, they each have their jobs, and they're all trying to get this particle accelerator to work. And after the credits roll, it starts by opening up with Donald Logue on TV explaining what he calls the Cloverfield Paradox, which is, if we were able to turn on this machine, it could very well open up wormholes in space. It could open up different dimensions. It could allow creatures from deep beneath the ocean or whatever to come into our world. So this is explained right off the rip. That's a monologue had while they're trying to get the particle accelerator to work, and then while they're doing that, this video is being explained on the TV, so you kind of get an idea of what some people on Earth believe could happen, and what other people believe, which is, clean energy. What we're trying to do here is clean energy. So they finally get it to turn on, and everything goes haywire, and they end up in an alternate universe. And this is where it gets kind of interesting, is because it opens up a multiverse theory, and this is where multiple Cloverfield sequels can kind of play off that, because it can basically mean that all the Cloverfield movies, because we opened ourselves up to these creatures and to these different universes by turning on this machine, it also means that each movie can take place in a different universe, because each creature is different, or different creatures went to different universes, but we collided with these universes because of turning on this particle accelerator. So one of the things I was kind of taken aback by was there was a little too much comedy to really invest in the space horror element of the film. Chris O'Dowd, to me, I don't know him from much. I know he was in Bridesmaids, and I know he was in Thor: The Dark World. He's comedic relief, right? And that's not a bad thing. But for me, he kind of took away from the horror elements. In particular, there's one scene where the spaceship starts kind of messing with them, like, because they went through this shift in this paradigm shift where they go to a different universe. The ship is also kind of altered in a way where the ship kind of becomes alive, and one of the moments the ship eats his arm and takes his arm, and it's completely severed without having him feel any pain. Like, it just completely took his arm. And so later on in the moment, they find his arm crawling around another part of the spaceship, and what probably should have been a horrific moment, they really kind of made it comedic, and that was a little much for me. You know, the arm stuff in particular, like, you know, like I said, the way that they took the arm, the way that the arm was acting upon itself, and there was jokes all about it, to the point where the arm had a message to write them. It was just too comedic in my eyes. I like the thought process behind the moment, but behind the moments that involved the arm, but it was just a little too comedic for what I was expecting. There was some other stuff that was really cool, like Tan, she goes off to try to drain out the precipitation that's in the ship, because she thinks that the water levels are what are leaving the ship uncalibrated and unable to map out where they are. So she goes to release some of this water pressure and this precipitation that's coming off the ship, and the ship backfires on her and releases all this water into the place where she is, into the room where she is, and it happens to have an access door out into space. And it's a really cool concept, because as it fills with water, they're trying to get in, but the ship won't let them. And she ends up, it fills up so much with water, and the room gets so tight with water that the door on the other end busts open, and everything just freezes, including her, because, you know, the cold reaches of space, so it all just freezes immediately. And it was pretty horrific. Like, there was things in this movie that I really liked, things I didn't like. We meet Elizabeth Debicki has a character later on in the film. Her name is Jensen, and she has a horrific intro, because you see her, and she actually, like, so they're starting to hear this rumbling in a wall, and so they take the wall apart, and they realize that there's a woman inside. She's just intertangled with all of the cords and wires and building materials of the ship, and she got put there when they transferred universes. And so they save her life, and she starts, this is how they find out they're in a different universe, because she says, I'm part of this crew. I've been up here with Schmidt and Keel. Hamilton, you were supposed to be back on Earth. You never came up here with us. And that's where you start to realize, oh wait, maybe we're in another universe. And Schmidt, Daniel Bruhl's character, figures that out. They have a lot of story plots that do end up having resolution, but they're not meaningless either. But there are some certain story plots where I feel like got some attention, got more attention than others, like that the fact that, like, this Earth is having World War III, and that's why they can't trust Schmidt, because there happens to be emails from Schmidt to the German government that he's trying to prevent them from making this happen against the Russian government. Like, there's little things like that kind of, they're a little too much. One of the storylines I did like, however, though, was that our lead character, Hamilton, her husband's back on Earth, and he's the real, like, Cloverfield connection, because he's watching these monsters, the Cloverfield monsters, attack Earth from Earth, while these people are lost in space, basically. So, but you come to find out that him and her had some children, and they died in a tragic fire accident with a power source, and that the woman had tried to put a light into her kid's bedroom, and the light caught fire, and they died. And so she realizes that since her other self in this other universe never came up to space, that there's a chance her kids might be alive. And the woman happens to be Jensen, or Elizabeth Debicki's character, happens to be friends with her and says, yeah, your kids aren't dead. That never happened. So she's like, oh my God, I'm going to go down to this Earth and save my family. And that story thread was really good. But she ends up changing her mind and going, you know what, I need to go back to my universe, but I'm going to send her a message in hopes that she'll save these kids. And so that was a really good story plot. I really, like I said, I didn't mind this movie. I wish it was a little bit more horrific, a little less comedic. We're gonna get more Cloverfield movies. These movies seem to be doing pretty good. This one got a Netflix release. It got purchased from Paramount by Netflix. It caught everyone by surprise because it was supposed to get a theatrical release, and Netflix overpaid to bring it to Netflix, and that's cool. Like, it's not bad that happened, but I think it might have been a flop if it was at the movie theater. It's not as good as 10 Cloverfield Lane, and it's not as good as the original Cloverfield, but it does open up the idea that all the different Cloverfield movies can happen in different universes. Like, I guess the next one is called Cloverfield Station, and it takes place during World War II. So that'll be interesting to see how that goes. So I'm going to leave on that note. This movie gets an A-. I've yet to go past 1- or 1+ for these movies because I haven't seen one that really takes my breath away this year yet. But it gets an A- because it wasn't up to snuff. It wasn't what I expected, and it wasn't near good enough to get better than that rating. So with that, I hope you enjoyed our review of Cloverfield Paradox. It's worth checking out. It's free. It's on Netflix. If you have a Netflix subscription, which most people do nowadays, check it out. It's worth it. But overall, it gets an A- in my book. Come back to us next time. A for Effort Movie Reviews. I'm your host, Matt. Hopefully, we will see another movie this week prior to Black Panther, but if not, Black Panther is coming in less than a week. So, again, I'm Matt, your host. Come back and see us.